I'm playing something almost every week, and sometimes I want to talk about it and give you a vertical slice. So stick with me for some lightning reviews. This week on the chopping block. This week I've been playing S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, Heart of Chornobyl. About a year and a half ago, I stated that this was one of the games I was looking most forward to. Since then, I've also dabbled with the prior S.T.A.L.K.E.R trilogy and tracked down a physical copy of it on PS4 that had to be imported from Japan. To cover one thing I actively seek in games and can't seem to stop mentioning are titles that put an emphasis on atmosphere and coincidentally seem to come out of Eastern European developers. For the sake of avoiding spoilers, most of my footage and story recap will be just from the early game. You play as a rather mercenary individual who enters the zone with the intention of utilizing the anomalies that occur to get rich. In the process, you're interrupted by various parties, and then your equipment is stolen and you're left for dead. When you wake up, you're given some basic tips for survival by a local stalker, and begin your quest to find the guy who took your stuff. Although, from the very start of the game, you are being set up for subversion. When you first infiltrate the zone, you're relatively well equipped, health pickups are plentiful, and up until the moment you're caught, you feel fairly capable. Afterwards, the game not only takes away your equipment, but that sense of comfort along with it. The game quickly shifts from first-person shooter to first-person survival, and let me tell you up front that when you start this game, you will die. But we'll come back to that. The first major difference from Shadow of Chornobyl that I noticed in structure was rather than the bead and string means of progression, the game is fully open world. Freedom to walk in any direction until something, including the environment, tries to kill you. Yes, another thing I learned very quickly is that you don't need to be in active conflict to be in danger. Naturally occurring hazards around the exclusion zone can give you a wide variety of interesting ways to take a dirt nap. Did you stumble into something that looks like a pulsating force field? Well, you either get torn to pieces or get flung in any number of directions to have your skin upholster the nearby greenery. Maybe electric shots or gouts of flames are more your thing? Not to worry. Anyway, the takeaway I gathered was you must be ever vigilant when making your way from spot to spot. Casually walking into natural traps, any number of hostile animals or mutants, or even just stumbling into an encampment can have devastating consequences.
Hey, you! Back off! That's my loot. I was here first.
After a time, I traversed Hearts of Chornobyl making sure I had every weapon I could loaded in case things got hairy fast. The level of caution that was instilled in me was almost jarring to the point I began monitoring the time of day before initiating quests. Unlike many games that just throw a blue filter over the screen to simulate night, Hearts of Chornobyl appropriately darkens everything, and while you have a head-mounted flashlight to aid you, it really only serves a benefit in confined spaces like tunnels and buildings. Out in the open, you are alone, vulnerable, and most importantly, visible to others. Shadow of Chornobyl's ability to portray a sense of the foreboding is impressive and is thankfully exemplified by the details of the world around you. If it wasn't, it would be very easy to walk into any number of death traps while simply going to your next objective, and that helps with the sense of immersion that I relish so much from Eastern European developers that make games like this. Certain story developments and character interactions were equally engrossing and facilitated a fair feeling of agency in the player. One early side quest has you out to find a religious painting that a guy remembers from his childhood that is located somewhere in a mysterious field of poppies. However, that field of flowers has a supernatural and fatal side effect. As you explore the flowers, you become drowsy, your stamina bar depletes, and you begin to hear voices. This field gets played up as one of the most deceptively dangerous areas of the map. As you approach it for the first time, though, you encounter another stalker who offers you the coordinates for the item you came for in exchange for looting the bodies of other stalkers that wandered into the field, who fell asleep and never woke up. I completed the looting, actively chugging energy drinks like a Japanese salaryman in the week before a deadline, and was gifted with the coordinates for the painting. The stalker then relays that if I sold him the painting instead, he'd give me a one-of-a-kind gun. Compelling, but given that my choice of gun was heavily dictated by whatever ammo was being scrounged off bodies rather than what I'd like to use, I ultimately decided to bring the painting back to the original quest giver. Like I said, engrossing and immersive. Unfortunately, that has to be couched in the fact that as deep as I was immersed when the game got good, when the game glitched out, I was ejected right back more violently than had I walked into one of those gravitational anomalies. The biggest issues I've heard about are more to do with the game's level of polish or lack therein in certain scenarios. I didn't encounter many instances of glitches, but what I did notice was the Xbox Series X hardware that I was playing on struggling to load appropriately, or keep up under the more strenuous moments. Saving often in this game becomes second nature to protect yourself from both the in-game hazards and the integrity of the game itself. GSC is fortunately putting out the patches with reliable frequency, but this led to another issue. Every time the game was patched, I lost setting adjustments that had been done prior. Fortunately for me, it was just Y inversion, but a friend of mine informs me this may be a wider Xbox issue. No wonder I've been favoring PC more lately. If physical PC copies were still a thing, or if consoles go all digital, I'm seriously contemplating abandoning consoles altogether. Speaking of patching though, does anyone else lament the loss of the days when a game shipped in a stable state because patches weren't a thing, and developers knew that if they shipped a buggy and broken game, then it was equivalent to a streaming personality coming out as being attracted to 12-year-olds? Yeah, I miss those days. Getting back to Hearts of Chernobyl and the tension it can instill when it eats its Wheaties, I came across another side effect that was both refreshing and disappointing. While I do get immersed and proportionally tense while playing, this had the unintended follow-through of emotionally and mentally draining me. Being so vigilant for an extended period starts to exhaust the player, making this game that, for me at least, is best enjoyed in chunks ranging for an hour or two. I alluded to it before, but in spite of being armed, this almost comes across as a survival horror experience. In spite of the technical shortcomings and the emotionally taxing state that is induced when you become immersed, I can confidently state this game is giving me what I came here looking for. It may take me a while to get through, and might have to be the primary focus when I take some time off in January, but I plan to keep going with this one. I suspect others would want to, and appropriately should wait until a few more patches come out, but if you're willing to forgive the current state, the Chernobyl exclusion zone welcomes you with a warm embrace. Just ignore that feeling that you're now at the mercy of whoever is holding you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some PCs to prepare for a client. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Remember that I give away Steam keys with my regular weekly uploads, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment and have contact info on your YouTube profile. But as always, thanks for watching and keep your head on your shoulders.